Imagine you're watching three dancers performing on stage. They move in perfect harmony at first, each following simple steps, predictable and graceful. But suddenly, something changes. One dancer stumbles slightly, and within seconds, the entire performance descends into complete chaos. What seemed controlled and beautiful becomes unpredictable and terrifying. This isn't just a metaphor for bad choreography. This is the three-body problem, one of the most fundamental and disturbing challenges in all of physics. And Richard Feynman's insights into it reveal something absolutely terrifying about the nature of our universe. You wake up every morning believing the world around you follows predictable patterns. The sun rises, the planets orbit. Your coffee gets cold at a rate you can calculate. We live in the comfortable illusion that science has figured everything out, that given enough information we can predict anything. Newton's laws work perfectly for two objects, whether it's the Earth and the Moon or a baseball and a bat. But add just one more object into the equation, and suddenly everything we thought we knew about predictability crumbles into dust. Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist who revolutionized our understanding of quantum mechanics, once said something that should keep you awake at night. When discussing systems of three or more interacting bodies, he didn't just call them complex or difficult to solve. He described them as fundamentally unknowable beyond certain time horizons. Not because we lack the computing power or the mathematical tools, but because the universe itself seems to have built-in limits to predictability. The equations that govern these systems contain a hidden monster, a mathematical demon that destroys our ability to see into the future, no matter how precisely we measure the present. Think about what this really means. Three objects as simple as three masses connected by gravity, following the exact same physical laws that govern every other interaction in the universe, can produce behavior so chaotic that even knowing their positions and velocities to infinite precision wouldn't help us predict where they'll be in the distant future. It's as if the universe has a built-in expiration date for knowledge. Feynman understood this better than almost anyone, and his insights into chaos and complexity weren't just academic curiosities. They were glimpses into the fundamental nature of reality that should fundamentally change how we view our place in the cosmos. The story begins in 1687 when Isaac Newton published his Principia Mathematica, changing forever how humanity understood motion and gravity. Newton's laws were revolutionary because they worked with stunning accuracy. If you knew the position and velocity of any object, you could calculate exactly where it would be at any future time. The Earth orbits the Sun in a predictable ellipse. The Moon's phases arrive precisely on schedule. Halley's Comet returns every 76 years, like clockwork. For the first time in human history, we could peer into the future with mathematical certainty. Newton himself was intoxicated by this power. He solved the two-body problem completely. Take any two objects in the universe, from planets to particles, and Newton's equations would tell you their dance with perfect accuracy for all eternity. The mathematical beauty was breathtaking. These objects would trace out perfect conic sections, ellipses, parabolas, hyperbolas, following paths as elegant as they were predictable. Scientists began to believe that the entire universe was like a giant clockwork mechanism where every gear and spring followed deterministic laws. Pierre-Simon Laplace, the great French mathematician, captured this optimism in 1814 with a statement that now seems almost naive in its confidence. He proposed that an intelligence knowing all forces and positions in the universe could predict the future and retrodict the past with perfect accuracy. Nothing would be uncertain to such an intelligence. The future would be as clear as the past. This became known as Laplace's demon, and for over a century it represented the pinnacle of scientific determinism. But there was a problem lurking in Newton's mathematics, a monster hiding in plain sight. Newton had solved the two-body problem completely, but when he tried to extend his analysis to three bodies, something went catastrophically wrong. The equations became impossible to solve analytically. Not difficult, not complex, but actually impossible in most cases. Newton himself struggled with this three-body problem, particularly when trying to explain the moon's orbit, which is influenced not just by Earth, but also by the sun. The mathematics that had seemed so powerful suddenly revealed its limitations. What Newton couldn't have known, and what wouldn't be understood for nearly 3 centuries, was that he had stumbled upon something far more profound than a mathematical difficulty. He had discovered the first glimpse of chaos theory, the first hint that deterministic systems could produce utterly unpredictable behavior. The three-body problem wasn't just mathematically challenging. It was revealing a fundamental feature of our universe that would eventually terrify anyone who truly understood its implications. At this point, I need you to do something. Look at the comments below and tell me what you think about this so far. Are you starting to see why this discovery is so unsettling? Does it change how you think about predictability and control in your own life? I want to know if this is hitting you the same way it hit me when I first understood what Feynman was really saying about chaos and determinism. The breakthrough that would eventually illuminate the true terror of the three-body problem came through the work of Henri Poincaré in the 1880s, and later through the revolutionary insights of physicists like Richard Feynman in the mid-20th century. Poincaré was working on what seemed like a straightforward celestial mechanics problem, trying to understand the stability of the solar system. King Oscar II of Sweden had offered a prize for anyone who could prove whether the solar system was stable over long periods of time. Poincaré's investigation led him to discoveries that would fundamentally change how we think about determinism and predictability. Poincaré discovered that even in systems governed by perfectly deterministic laws, tiny changes in initial conditions could lead to dramatically different outcomes over time. He found regions in the mathematical space of solutions where trajectories would separate exponentially, making long-term prediction impossible, regardless of how precisely you measured the starting conditions. This was the birth of what we now call sensitive dependence on initial conditions, or more poetically, the butterfly effect. But it was Richard Feynman who truly grasped the philosophical implications of these discoveries and connected them to broader questions about the nature of reality itself. Feynman had an extraordinary gift for seeing through mathematical complexity to the physical heart of problems. He understood that the chaos found in three-body systems wasn't just a curiosity of celestial mechanics. It was a fundamental feature of how our universe operates at every level, from the microscopic to the cosmic. Feynman's approach to physics was always deeply intuitive. He would often say that if you couldn't explain something to a freshman, you didn't really understand it yourself. When he looked at chaotic systems like the three-body problem, he saw something that challenged the very foundation of the scientific method. Science is supposed to be about finding patterns, making predictions, understanding causes and effects. But chaos theory suggested that there were fundamental limits to this enterprise that had nothing to do with human limitations and everything to do with the structure of reality itself. Consider what happens in a simple three-body system. Imagine 3 stars in space, each pulling on the others through gravitational attraction. Unlike the two-body case, where the motion follows predictable elliptical orbits, the three-body system can exhibit behavior that seems almost alive in its complexity. The stars might orbit in stable patterns for millions of years. Then, suddenly, one star gets ejected from the system at high velocity, while the other 2 remain bound. Or they might dance in an intricate choreography that never repeats, following paths that are deterministic in principle but utterly unpredictable in practice. Feynman realized that this unpredictability wasn't due to quantum mechanics or fundamental uncertainty at the microscopic level. It was emerging from purely classical deterministic physics. Newton's equations were being followed perfectly, yet the system's behavior was fundamentally unknowable beyond certain time horizons. This was different from quantum uncertainty, which at least followed probabilistic rules. Chaotic deterministic systems could be completely unpredictable while following precise mathematical laws. The mathematics behind this chaos is simultaneously elegant and terrifying. In the phase space of a three-body system, where each point represents a possible state of positions and velocities, there exist strange attractors and fractal boundaries that create infinite complexity from simple rules. Trajectories that start arbitrarily close together can diverge exponentially, making the system's future effectively unknowable despite being perfectly determined by its past. Feynman often used analogies to help people understand complex physics, and his thinking about chaos was no exception. He might have compared a chaotic system to a perfectly fair coin that you flip with mechanical precision. Even though the physics of the coin flip is completely deterministic, governed by Newton's laws of motion and the conservation of energy and momentum, the outcome becomes practically unpredictable because tiny variations in initial conditions get amplified into completely different results. But the coin flip analogy doesn't capture the full terror of what Feynman understood about chaos. A coin flip has only two possible outcomes, and the uncertainty is limited. In chaotic systems like the three-body problem, the number of possible behaviors is essentially infinite, and the uncertainty grows without bound. It's as if the universe contains systems that are simultaneously perfectly lawful and completely unpredictable, following rules while generating behavior that appears random. This led Feynman to insights about the nature of computation and simulation that were decades ahead of his time. He understood that even with unlimited computing power, there would be fundamental limits to our ability to predict the behavior of chaotic systems. The problem isn't computational, it's ontological. The universe itself seems to contain irreducible complexity that can't be compressed into simpler, predictive models. If you've made it this far, you're probably starting to feel what I felt when I first really understood what Feynman was saying. It's unsettling, isn't it? We live our lives assuming that if something is governed by physical laws, it should be predictable. We make plans, set goals, assume that actions lead to predictable consequences. But chaos theory suggests that much of our universe operates in a realm where the very concept of prediction breaks down, not because of our ignorance, but because of the fundamental nature of complex systems. Modern applications of three-body dynamics and chaos theory have revealed just how pervasive these effects are in our universe. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is shaped by chaotic dynamics with gaps and clusters that result from complex gravitational interactions between Jupiter, the Sun, and the asteroids themselves. These Kirkwood gaps, first observed in the 1860s, are direct evidence of chaos operating on a solar system scale. The motion of Pluto and its moon Charon represents another example of three-body chaos in action. Their orbital dance is influenced not just by their mutual gravitational attraction, but by the distant pull of Neptune. Over millions of years, this creates chaotic variations in their orbit that make precise long-term predictions impossible. We can calculate their approximate positions far into the future, but the fine details of their motion contain irreducible uncertainty. Even more dramatically, the Alpha Centauri system, our nearest stellar neighbors, exhibits three-body dynamics that have puzzled astronomers for decades. Alpha Centauri A and B orbit each other in a complex dance, while Proxima Centauri, much farther out, follows an orbit that shows signs of chaotic behavior. Understanding this system is crucial for any future interstellar missions, yet the chaos inherent in three-body dynamics means that precise predictions of planetary positions in this system become impossible beyond certain time horizons. Feynman's insights into chaos extended far beyond astronomy and celestial mechanics. He recognized that weather systems, ecosystems, economic markets, and even neural networks in the brain all exhibit the same fundamental mathematical structure as the three-body problem. They are systems where simple rules generate complex, unpredictable behavior, where small causes can have large effects, and where the future becomes fundamentally unknowable beyond certain limits. The weather provides perhaps the most famous example of this chaos in everyday life. Edward Lorenz, working in the 1960s, discovered that his weather simulation models exhibited extreme sensitivity to initial conditions. Changing the input data by tiny amounts, equivalent to the flap of a butterfly's wings, could completely alter the predicted weather patterns weeks later. This wasn't a flaw in the model, it was a fundamental feature of atmospheric dynamics. The atmosphere is essentially a massive three-body problem with countless air masses interacting through pressure, temperature, and humidity gradients. Feynman understood that this chaos in weather systems wasn't just an inconvenience for meteorologists. It revealed something profound about the nature of complex systems everywhere. The human brain, with its billions of interconnected neurons, exhibits similar chaotic dynamics. Tiny changes in neural firing patterns can cascade through the network, creating vastly different thoughts, emotions, or decisions. This suggests that even our own consciousness and decision-making processes might be fundamentally chaotic and unpredictable. The stock market provides another terrifying example of chaos in action. Despite the efforts of countless economists, mathematicians, and computer scientists, financial markets remain fundamentally unpredictable beyond short time horizons. The interactions between millions of traders, each responding to information and emotions in complex ways, creates a vast chaotic system where small events can trigger massive market movements. The 2008 financial crisis, triggered by problems in a relatively small segment of the housing market, demonstrated how chaos in financial systems can have global consequences. Feynman's understanding of chaos led him to profound insights about the limits of scientific knowledge itself. He realized that science, which had been built on the assumption that understanding the laws governing a system would allow us to predict its behavior, faced fundamental limitations that couldn't be overcome by better instruments or more powerful computers. Some aspects of our universe are not just unknown, but unknowable in principle. This creates what philosophers of science call the horizon of predictability. For any chaotic system, there exists a time horizon beyond which prediction becomes impossible, no matter how precisely we measure the initial conditions. For weather systems, this horizon is about 2 weeks. For the solar system, it might be millions of years. For the three-body problem in its most chaotic configurations, it could be much shorter. The implications of Feynman's insights into chaos extend into questions about free will and determinism that have plagued philosophers for centuries. If the universe is deterministic, as classical physics suggests, then everything that happens is the inevitable result of prior causes. But if that deterministic universe contains systems that are fundamentally unpredictable, what does determinism really mean? Feynman understood that chaos theory didn't resolve the debate between free will and determinism, but it did reveal that the question might be more complex than anyone had imagined. You should think about what this means for your own life. Every decision you make, every plan you create, exists within a chaotic universe where small changes can have enormous consequences. The job interview that changes your career might depend on whether you arrive 2 minutes early or 2 minutes late. The person you marry might be determined by whether you choose to walk down one side of the street or the other on a particular day. Feynman's insights into chaos suggest that while your life follows the laws of physics, just like everything else in the universe, its ultimate trajectory might be as unpredictable as the motion of 3 gravitating bodies in space. Before I continue, Take a moment to reflect on how this makes you feel. Does it terrify you to think that so much of your life might be fundamentally unpredictable? Or do you find it liberating to know that even in a deterministic universe, the future remains open and uncertain? Leave a comment and share your thoughts about how chaos theory changes your perspective on planning, control, and the nature of fate itself. Modern research into chaos theory and complex systems has revealed that the three-body problem is just the tip of an enormous iceberg. Scientists working in fields ranging from ecology to neuroscience to economics have discovered that chaotic dynamics are not the exception, but the rule in complex systems. Food webs in ecosystems, traffic patterns in cities, the spread of diseases through populations, the formation of social movements, all exhibit the same mathematical signatures that Feynman identified in the three-body problem. The discovery of chaos in biological systems has been particularly unsettling. Population dynamics in ecosystems can exhibit sudden crashes or explosions that seem to come from nowhere, but are actually the result of chaotic interactions between predators, prey, and environmental factors. The extinction of species can result from tiny environmental changes that get amplified through chaotic ecological dynamics, making conservation efforts extraordinarily difficult to predict or control. Even more disturbing are the implications for human physiology and medicine. The human heart, brain, and immune system all exhibit chaotic dynamics under certain conditions. Heart arrhythmias can emerge from the chaotic dynamics of electrical signals in cardiac tissue. Seizures in the brain represent transitions from normal to chaotic neural activity. The immune system's response to pathogens involves complex networks of cellular interactions that can exhibit unpredictable, chaotic behavior. This has led to a revolution in how we think about disease and treatment. Traditional medicine assumed that understanding the biological mechanisms of disease would lead to predictable treatments, but chaos theory suggests that biological systems are often too complex for such simple cause and effect relationships. Small genetic variations or environmental factors can have enormous effects on disease progression and treatment response, making personalized medicine both more important and more challenging than ever imagined. Feynman's insights into chaos have also transformed our understanding of technology and engineering. The behavior of complex technological systems, from power grids to computer networks to air traffic control systems, can exhibit chaotic dynamics that make them vulnerable to unexpected failures. The 2003 blackout that affected 55 million people in North America was triggered by relatively minor power line failures that cascaded through the electrical grid in chaotic fashion. The design of modern technological systems now must account for the possibility of chaotic behavior and unexpected emergent properties. Engineers can no longer assume that understanding the individual components of a system will allow them to predict the system's overall behavior. This has led to new approaches to system design that emphasize resilience and adaptability over predictability and control. Perhaps most unsettling of all are the implications of chaos theory for artificial intelligence and machine learning. As we create AI systems of increasing complexity, we're essentially building artificial three-body problems, systems whose behavior might be fundamentally unpredictable despite being completely deterministic. The recent development of large language models and neural networks that exhibit emergent behaviors their creators didn't anticipate suggests that we're already entering an era where our own technological creations might be as chaotic and unpredictable as the natural systems Feynman studied. The philosophical implications of Feynman's understanding of chaos extend deep into questions about the nature of knowledge, prediction, and control that define human civilization. We build institutions, make laws, create social systems, and plan for the future, all based on the assumption that understanding causes and effects will allow us to shape outcomes. But chaos theory suggests that this assumption might be fundamentally flawed for complex systems. Consider what this means for fields like economics, politics, and social policy. Economic systems involve millions of interacting agents, each making decisions based on incomplete information and emotional factors. Political movements emerge from complex networks of social interaction that can exhibit sudden phase transitions from stability to revolution. Social policies designed to address complex problems like poverty, crime, or education often fail because they assume linear relationships between interventions and outcomes in systems that are actually chaotic. Feynman understood that this didn't mean we should abandon efforts to understand and influence complex systems, but it did mean we needed to fundamentally change our approach. Instead of trying to predict and control the specific outcomes of complex systems, we might need to focus on understanding their general patterns and designing interventions that are robust to unpredictable variations. This has led to new approaches in fields ranging from urban planning to environmental policy to organizational management. Instead of trying to plan cities down to the last detail, urban planners now focus on creating adaptive systems that can evolve and respond to changing conditions, instead of trying to control natural ecosystems. Environmental scientists focus on maintaining resilience and diversity that can withstand chaotic fluctuations. Instead of trying to predict market behavior, financial institutions focus on risk management strategies that can survive unpredictable market dynamics. The terror that Feynman felt when contemplating chaos wasn't just intellectual, it was deeply personal. He realized that his entire approach to physics, based on finding simple principles that could explain and predict natural phenomena, faced fundamental limitations. The universe contained irreducible complexity that couldn't be tamed by human mathematics or understanding. Even perfect knowledge of physical laws and initial conditions might not be enough to predict the future behavior of complex systems. This led Feynman to a profound humility about the limits of scientific knowledge that was unusual among physicists of his era. He often spoke about the importance of acknowledging uncertainty and the danger of overconfidence in scientific predictions. He understood that the same mathematical tools that had unlocked so many secrets of the universe also revealed fundamental limits to what could be known. The three-body problem had revealed something unsettling about the structure of reality itself. The universe appeared to be simultaneously lawful and unpredictable, ordered and chaotic, deterministic and uncertain. This wasn't a contradiction, but a fundamental feature of how complex systems behave when governed by nonlinear dynamics. Feynman's genius lay in recognizing that this chaos wasn't a bug in the universe's operating system, but a feature that might be essential to creativity, adaptation, and the emergence of complex structures from simple rules. From the perspective of modern complexity science, the chaos that Feynman identified in the three-body problem is now understood to be crucial for many of the universe's most important processes. Chaos allows simple systems to explore vast ranges of possible behaviors, enabling evolution, adaptation, and innovation. Without chaos, the universe might be trapped in rigid, predictable patterns that couldn't generate the complexity we observe in biological, social, and technological systems. The terror of the three-body problem isn't just that it reveals the limits of prediction and control. It's that it shows us a universe that is far stranger and more complex than our everyday experience suggests. We live in a cosmos where simple rules can generate infinite complexity, where tiny causes can have enormous effects, and where the future remains fundamentally open despite being governed by precise mathematical laws. Feynman's insights into chaos have ultimately proven to be liberating as well as terrifying. They suggest that, even in a deterministic universe, creativity, novelty, and genuine surprise are not only possible, but inevitable. The same mathematical principles that make the three-body problem unsolvable also make possible the emergence of life, consciousness, art, science, and all the complex phenomena that make existence meaningful. As we stand at the threshold of an era where artificial intelligence and complex technologies are becoming as chaotic and unpredictable as natural systems, Feynman's understanding of chaos becomes more relevant than ever. We are creating a world where the three-body problem isn't just an abstract mathematical curiosity, but a practical reality that shapes everything from global financial markets to social media networks to climate systems. The question now isn't whether we can avoid chaos in complex systems, but whether we can learn to live wisely within it. Can we design institutions, technologies, and social structures that are robust to chaotic dynamics? Can we make decisions and plans that remain sensible even when the future is fundamentally unpredictable? Can we find meaning and purpose in a universe where small actions can have enormous consequences, but those consequences can never be fully predicted or controlled? Feynman would have wanted us to approach these questions with the same combination of intellectual humility and bold curiosity that he brought to the three-body problem. He understood that the chaos in complex systems isn't something to be feared or avoided, but something to be understood, respected, and perhaps even celebrated. In the end, the terror of the three-body problem reveals not the failure of scientific understanding, but its deepest triumph, the recognition that the universe is far more magnificent, mysterious, and unpredictable than we could have ever imagined. The three-body problem stands as a monument to the limits of human knowledge and the infinite complexity that emerges from simple laws. It reminds us that we live in a universe where determinism and unpredictability coexist, where order and chaos dance together in patterns too complex for any mind to fully comprehend. Richard Feynman's insights into this problem didn't solve it. They revealed why it couldn't be solved and why that might be the most beautiful and terrifying truth about the nature of reality itself. In our daily lives, as we make plans and assume we can predict the consequences of our actions, it's worth remembering the three-body problem. It suggests that the universe is far more open, uncertain, and full of possibilities than our need for control and predictability would like to admit. Perhaps the real lesson isn't that chaos makes planning pointless, but that it makes every moment, every decision, and every unexpected outcome part of a grand cosmic experiment whose results will forever remain a mystery. Educational note. While this content is based on real scientific principles about chaos theory and the three-body problem, some specific connections to Richard Feynman's personal views and discoveries have been interpreted and expanded upon for educational and entertainment purposes. The core mathematical and physical principles discussed are scientifically accurate,